Brought to you by Charity Mobile. Switch to the phone company that supports your beliefs. All plans start under $50 before taxes and surcharges. Use promo code TRADITION at CharityMobile.com for a special offer. Michael Haynes and Diane Montagna both reported on this. Just in, the Vatican says that on October 9th, that was last week, the five judges to hear Father Marco Rupnik's case were appointed. They are women and clergy with no other position in the Roman Curia in order to be independent. Now, their independence is especially good news. The case reopened in October of 2023, but Cardinal Fernandez said in July the judges had already been chosen. So they were formally appointed last week, and the Rupnik case is going to go forward, which also means they know where Rupnik is. Right after the conclave, it was reported that Marco Rupnik got on a plane and went to South America. If you're not familiar with the Marco Rupnik case, I can't share the details of it on YouTube in any real clear way because, for one, the rules of this place are against it. But the other, his crimes are so heinous that I literally cannot describe them to you in full detail without having to go to confession. However, here's what he did, basically. Marco Rupnik is the priest associated with some of the weirdest modern art in the church. His art adorns basilicas and cathedrals and parishes, the Knights of Columbus's Hall in the United States. Random parishes around the world have his art. He has done art for various synods and Vatican events. He was a Jesuit. He was also the priest who was essentially the founder of an order of women religious who, back starting in like the 1980s, he would use these women as his personal playthings. Coercing them, and the word coerce is the correct one here, to violate their vows of chastity and celibacy, and to do so with him. He incurred automatic excommunication for absolving them of sins he got them to do with him in the confessional. Immediately excommunicated for that. And that's not even the worst of it. In his activities with these women, that again, they were coerced into, they weren't volunteers in this. He used his power and his influence to get it. There's certain words for that. He used implements for the Mass in his activities with these women. And that is as graphic as I can get, not just because of the rules of this place, but because decency requires that I can't. He is, by all reports, one of the nastiest men in the church since Maciel. Seems to be in the post-conciliar era, every couple of decades, you get a figure like this. Just a man who is overtly evil. He was so bad that the Jesuits, when they investigated it, found enough evidence to immediately remove him from the order. The Jesuits kicked him out because he was too much for them. And then the Vatican, declared he had incurred automatic excommunication. Except Pope Francis rescinded it, put him back into active ministry as a priest, and had him incarnated in his home diocese, except he's hung around Rome still, making artwork. Some places tore his artwork down, others continued allowing it up, which sent some really weird messages. And so this is why it's interesting that the DDF, the Cardinal Fernandez, announced last week, likely at the direction of the Pope, that the case against Marco Rupnik will go forward and with independent judges. That's good news. Credit where it is due. Now, speaking of Cardinal Fernandez made the news after being very quiet so far during the Leo papacy. He has been meeting seemingly every other week with the Pope. Not an unusual thing. I wouldn't read too much into that. He is, after all, the prefect for the dicastery of the doctrine of the faith, a key position in the Vatican. He is going to be meeting with the Pope on a regular basis for various things, including assisting him with encyclicals that might be in the works or anything else. But Fernandez made the news because one of the figures that is not well known outside of Germany that I cover a lot on this channel is Cardinal Georg Botzing. He is the president of the German Synodal Way, which makes the Synod on Synodality look like the Council of Trent. By comparison, that's how bad the German synodal process is. The Germans had decided to move forward with offering, we'll call them fiducia supplicans kind of blessings, except in the most overt way possible, short of doing a marriage itself. Far exceeding anything the Vatican okayed, far exceeding anything Francis overtly okayed. And Bishop Botzing recently said that, no, we got permission from the DDF to do this. Cardinal Fernandez gave us permission to do this. That, of course, caused we might call it an international firestorm. A very brief one. And then here's what the Pillar reports. Headline, Fernandez, the DDF did not approve anything on the German James Martin Blessings handbook. So you see, the Germans had published an entire conference-wide guidebook on how to offer these blessings for these unholy parodies of holy matrimony. The satanic inversion of it. They published a whole book on how to do it. A guidebook on essentially how to help people condemn themselves to eternal perdition from the sounds of it. And for whatever reason, Fernandez, author of Heal Me With Your Mouth, nasty poetry that no Catholic priest should ever have been writing, and he wrote that stuff and way worse. Remember when he was first appointed, that caused a huge scandal. This was either too much for him or the Pope said, no, you got to put this fire out now before it gets worse. And it also is very likely that Bishop Botzing literally was just misrepresenting the truth. Here are the details. Quote, Cardinal Victor Manuel Fernandez has denied that the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith approved recent guidelines for blessings of James Martin type pairings issued by the German Bishops' Conference. The conference president Bishop Georg Botzing has claimed the controversial text issued during the papal interregnum had been created, quote, transparently in consultation with this dicastery, meaning the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith. Responding to questions from the Pillar on October 8th, Cardinal Fernandez said that, quote, the DDF didn't approve anything of the irregular union's guideline and wrote a letter some time ago reminding the German bishops that fiducia supplicans excluded any form of ritualization, just as the Pope has said. Fernandez's statement to the Pillar follows other media reports this week, calling into question recently claims by German Bishops' Conference President Bishop Georg Botzing, who said last month that the Vatican had been consulted on the development of controversial guidelines issued in April, days after the death of Pope Francis. We have developed this paper transparently with the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith and in consultation with this dicastery, Botzing said on September 22nd. So for anyone who might now ask, there is no reason to withdraw it, end quote. We'll come back to Bishop Botzing in just a second. I reported on this channel when Bishop Botzing and the German bishops issued those guidelines immediately after Pope Francis passed away. His body was not cold yet, to put it crudely. And why did they do that? Because in an interregnum, there is no authority in Rome to stop them. Every position in the Roman Curia goes on hold until there's a new pope, except for like there's one or two offices that can still respond to things. But in general, any kind of question that Rome would intervene on, well, they get their power. The officers there get their power from the Pope. And if there's no Pope at the time, they have no power. So they go on hold, worrying about, the task at hand, which is, the public mourning for the Pope and preparation for a conclave. That's it. That's all they do. And so, of course, knowing this, the German bishops and a few other bishops in other places, suddenly started issuing at lightning speed all sorts of bizarre declarations and bizarre rules. And one of them was, in Germany, a set of guidelines for a ritualized blessing for James Martin's unholy parody of matrimony. That's what they did. It was as if they were, hedging their bets. They probably thought we were going to get there was a good chance we were going to get a counterbalance to Pope Francis, somebody maybe like Cardinal of Jerusalem, Pizzaballa, or maybe Cardinal Sarah, or somebody like that. That could be what they were hedging their bets against. They want to get these in place before that happened. So we got Leo, who was very much like Pope Francis, to the point where it's pretty obvious that he is basically Pope Francis 2.0 with better optics. But Fernandez now is trying to rein them in. And to be fair, Pope Francis repeatedly tried to rein the German bishops in. It's worth remembering that the German bishops proposed at their own synodal way that the church in Germany was going to allow laymen to pick who the bishops were, laymen to authorize who got to be ordained to the priesthood, laymen to authorize who got to enter into seminary, laymen to run parishes, laymen to give homilies. And by laymen, we also mean women. They were going to do all those things. And Francis sent them a message saying, do not do this alone. Do everything you're doing with the universal church, which is not the same thing as don't do this. He wanted them to do everything they're doing in communion with the church, meaning fall into line behind the synod on synodality, and trying to make it sound like the synod may meet them halfway, or better than that, on all of those issues. The synod on synodality is still ongoing. It's not over. It's still got sessions to go, working group meetings and things, and document coming out in like 2028. But he did try to rein them in. That's how bad the German bishops were, that they tried to rein them in. This is made more clear here a little bit in this section. Quote, Botzing claimed in a press conference to open the German bishops' plenary meeting last month that the handbook titled Blessings Give Love Strength, and published in April, quote, is a pastoral concretization of fiducia supplicans, created in consultation with the Roman Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith about the situation in Germany. The bishop insisted that the German bishops had prepared these guidelines transparently with the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith and in consultation with the Dicastery. But according to Fernandez, there was little in the text development which could be described as consultation, and the Dicastery's intervention was critical of the German bishops' efforts. The DDF sent a letter to the Liturgical Commission of the German Bishops' Conference, indicating that the DDF cannot approve any form of ritualization of these blessings, because any form of ritualization is expressly excluded in fiducia supplicans, the cardinal told the pillar. Botzing has insisted that the German bishops, quote, have not published any rituals for any blessings, but place responsibility for the form of such a blessing in the hands of pastoral workers. Botzing's defense of the handbook followed the publication by Crux last month of an interview with Pope Leo XIV, in which the Pope appeared to criticize the German text. Quoting the Pope, in Northern Europe, they are already publishing rituals of blessing, quote, people who love one another, which goes specifically against the document that Pope Francis approved, fiducia supplicans, which doesn't look for a way of ritualizing some kind of blessing because that's not what the church teaches, he said in the interview, end quote. By the way, if you're expecting Pope Leo to undo fiducia supplicans, it's not going to happen. That makes it pretty clear he's not going to undo it. He's happy with the document. Now, will he rein in or attempt to rein in excesses done in the name of that document? It appears to be the case. That doesn't make the document good. It's still an evil document, and it does say something that we're not going to get that rescinded anytime soon. But as for the Fernandez-Botzing issue, somebody is lying. Is it Botzing? Or is it Fernandez? My money is it's on Botzing. But Fernandez could easily produce documents, if need be, copies of the correspondence to prove his case. And quite frankly, so could Botzing. My expectation is it's the German bishops, because the German bishops have threatened to go into schism over these issues. They're the ones who think that the best way to make sure you never get another Ted McCarrick type in the church again is to allow essentially the church to change the church's teaching on all that sin that James Martin has an unhealthy interest in for a priest. Not realizing that the very core nature of the McCarrick problem is that sin that James Martin has an unhealthy interest in for a priest. They will, by normalizing that, of course, they will not only reject the gospel, but in a more material sense, make the problem worse. Let me know otherwise what you think about this in the comments, please. Hit like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. Share this on social media if you can. That helps a lot as well. And if you've ever thought about supporting the work we do here at Return to Tradition, options in the description box below, including that subscribe plus button. They do help keep these daily messages coming. As always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.